subscribe for the very latest. Play, Daddy.
I shall fear no man, just God. But it was God that gave me these bars.
My pen is the paintbrush, notepad the easel. Been painting with a twist before, sipping with my people. Stacking lines, equal sign, this verse is the prequel to the man you hear before you flowing through your speakers. Hempstead Nights, silky slim with the pearly whites. Earned a rep being smooth with the ladies. Plus could fight, kept the knife in his inside coat pocket. 22 strap on his ankle as another option. Protege of Chocolate Tay and OG from around the way. Used to run numbers and push yay. No Yeezy.
So hey, I got another question before we get out of here.
What's that?
So all right, so how long y'all think it's been since the South really took over hip hop? Like, when is that? How long ago was that?
Mid 2000s.
Yeah, the 2000s after Lil Jon era. I think that's.
Oh yeah, Crunk era.
Yeah, after that.
Yes,
after
Lil Jon.
That's it fizzled.
Lil Jon kicked the door in, and I'm gonna say Atlanta. I'm not gonna say the South. I'm gonna say Atlanta, right? We're gonna say Atlanta, because Atlanta really is the one that really holds the crown, right? Not so much now. I think it's honestly right now. I think it's kind of, because think about it, like besides Lil Baby and Lil Baby, according to his last single, I'm like,
questionable.
I don't know, right? But I'm just gonna stick with Atlanta. How happy are we with as time, because time has passed. We like 20 years in, over 20 years in since Lil Jon kicked in the door for Atlanta, right? Even though obviously and just for clarity, we know there were other artists before, Outkast, Organized, but at that time it was still more of a East Coast,
regional,
West Coast. No, it was more West Coast at this time when they came in. It was more West Coast, and it was East Coast as well, but it wasn't a heavy South presence. At this time we had Organized Noise, Outkast, Goody Mob. I gotta throw like Texas in there with the Ghetto Boys,
UGK,
right? UGK, and 3-6 is in there. They in there. They underground kind of, but they in there somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Master P, Cash Money, so they bubbling.
Mm-hmm.
But how happy are we with the results? Because time, I think I always say time will tell. Everything, the whole story. Time will tell the story.
Define what you mean by happy.
How happy are you? Are you pleased with what Atlanta has done with hip hop? Or are you pleased with the results of what Atlanta has put out?
I was happy with the fact that Atlanta, they had some stake in the game as far as hip hop goes. I was happy for that fact. I wasn't a big fan of crunk music and all that other stuff. I wasn't. I mean, I'm happy it did what it did, and it went around the world and got attention. For looking at the big picture of things, I'm happy that it helped it helped guide and lift Atlanta to where it is, to where it made a name for itself, and it made a name for Atlanta. So I'm happy for that. But I was not a big fan of that music, because I'm like, it's like you can't do nothing with that. I mean, you can get like, okay, the club, yeah, that will always be like a club mover. But like, I listen to music, and like, besides out of the club, there's nothing else you can do with that. From my standpoint, I mean, no disrespect to the work that they did. They made their money. They made a name for themselves. They had a career, and they established themselves for like the people that came in that genre doing that stuff. But I mean, that is what it is. Like, I can't sit there. And besides, if you like not at a party or whatever, you can't sit. That's not something that I don't think you could just sit there and you would pop in. You won't play that versus something that, like any other artist that has something that will play. It's not. I don't think it has playback ability outside of a party scene. That type of music. But I mean, but without that, you won't have what Atlanta is today. Honestly.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I'm a.
Yeah, that's my take.
Finish us off. All right. So, I mean, I wasn't like Southern music wasn't like Southern rap, like Southern hip hop. Outside of Outkast, I kind of like older. I've always liked older hip hop, and maybe that's because I'm from New York. So that might be a play into it, but I will never deny the crazy impact that it's had from Outkast all the way up to where we are now. Even like the Migos. When I look at the Migos, how they're really like them three dudes really did like take over the rap game.
They did. They did.
Hey, is this on? Let's make sure this is on real quick. Let me just say this real quick. Migos.
Yeah.
One of the greatest hip hop groups of all time.
Yo.
Yeah. Undeniable.
All you old people. Listen, all y'all old people can say what y'all want. Y'all can say Tino bugging. Right? Y'all can say I'm bugging, and that's cool.
And he from New
York. Cool. I understand that. Y'all, listen, I'm bugging. I'm bugging, right? Cool. I understand your point of view. I get it. You don't want to say because they weren't the most lyrical, whatever. That group,
yeah,
is one of the greatest groups in hip hop.
Yeah,
to do it. I'm sorry.
Hands down.
Take it high. You get listen. Hey, listen, man. It's not your era anymore. It's not your era anymore. But those dudes did it, bro. Like they did it. And I've been saying this before, what happened to Offset. Takeoff. Yeah. I've always said, cause I'm gonna tell you, I couldn't stand them. I could not stand Hannah Montana for nothing. And then I'm telling, like, one day I was like, I couldn't help it.
You can't help it. It's so bad.
Hey, the wrist just started twisting. I'm like, oh, what is going on? Hannah Montana. I'm like, oh, they got me.
They got you.
Hannah Montana. Yo, I'm like, that Hannah
Montana. That's a fact. Cause when I kid you not,
bro.
When Tino told me, said, "Man, I'm feeling this Amigos," I looked at him like, "You of all people,
hip hop, to the core."
I'm like, wow. That's when I kind of started to figure like that era, like with them, and Young Thug, they took Atlanta to current. Like they was the driving force.
They did.
Because everybody, no matter how weird Young Thug appears to be, that dude, everybody was
bumping his stuff.
But I would say this though, you won't have their story without the foundation that Little John and them laid.
I was about to say that.
Right.
Like you can tell the Migos are basically on the shoulders of the previous Atlanta music.
That crunk era.
Yeah,
they are.
Before them, y'all know Travis Porter? Like Yo, like,
Right, yeah.
You know, I'm not. I can't really co-sign on all of that. I'm gonna say this why.
Oh,
I'm gonna say you why. Because I don't think I'm not gonna say they're on the shoulders of Lil Jon.
okay.
Not
They're
Lil Jon.
They're a hybrid.
It's Gucci.
That's
So I'm not saying Lil Jon, but I'm saying the path from Lil Jon to
Not the path. I'm not saying the path from Lil Jon. I'm saying from the path of Gucci Mane. Because Lil Jon and Migos are not the same.
no, they're not. But yeah,
Gucci?
they're not.
Jeezy, T.I., that's where they cut from. They
Yeah, I
cut
agree.
from the trap.
I
They cut from the trap.
They are cut from the. They're cut from the trap, but they wouldn't like, dude. They had the work they did just to get the world to notice a little bit more.
I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. But what when we talking about somebody cut from the cloth and
From
from
the cloth.
somebody,
Yeah, that's
What-
they bred the Migos.
what I'm saying is that at all right, and this is T.I. made me understand this. At one point, there was no real representation of what the South was, like what Atlanta was, right? Think about what's y'all first. So I know y'all born and raised here, so I'm going to come from a person from an outside point of view, right? The only representation at one point that I had for Atlanta was Crisscross.
At one point,
At right, that was the only representation that I had of Atlanta.
yeah, at one point, yeah,
And then that's what 92,
92,
92,
92, 93.
92, right? So then comes Organized Noise, right? That's 96,
No,
90, 94,
That's 94.
94,
Yes, that's 94.
right? So even with Organized Noise, there's still another side of Atlanta
Mm-hmm.
that's not being shown
Mm-hmm.
because they're the only person you had. Well, I'm gonna say that the Organized Noise did a wonderful job ushering in Atlanta, but there's another story to be told.
Yeah.
And the people that bring that story in is T.I.
Mm.
and this Jeezy and this Gucci Mane. That trifecta is where Migos are coming from. They not. Then you had Little John, and Little John represented the. It's the evolution of booty shake music. Is what they used to call it, right?
Exactly.
Lil Jon is the evolution of what they call booty shake music.
True.
Now, once again, T.I. sitting at home like, yo, I'm not booty shake music. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm not. Chris Cross definitely don't represent me. Organized Noise, like he's sitting at home like, you know what? It's like that story I said about Nas. Like before Nas came, all the other rappers, I liked them, but they didn't represent me. Public Enemy didn't represent me. Big Daddy Kane didn't represent me. Rakim didn't represent me. Like, I loved them, but if I had to say, you know what, I could relate to that. Like, I relate to that. I could take that in. It's Nas, because Nas is 17, 18. I'm 14 when Nas is rapping, right? So we ain't too far from each other. So yeah, I can see, okay, nah, he talking my language. That's what the Migos is. Migos like, yo, you know what? I like that, but that ain't the type of time I'm on. That's why I say that. That's what I mean when I say that. So, but I mean, but are we pleased with it?
The Migos?
No, with Atlanta hip hop. Is it? Are we pleased with the product that Atlanta's put out in the last 20 years? Are we saying, if we saying that this music stood the test of time, that this is something that pushed the culture forward, and it's in a good, it's in good hands. It's in a good space right now.
I don't know if it's in a good space. But it did. Well, I will say this: it did push the culture forward. Now, forward in what direction? We don't know.
No, if it ain't going forward, it's going backwards.
Or laterally.
Right.
So yeah,
He's like up or forward.
Yeah.
nah, it ain't.
I think, like,
It's not. It pushed it, but it didn't. I don't think it pushed it in a good place.
Why not?
Because
Like sonically, not even sonically.
sonically, yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I mean,
I can't.
Lil Jon had the same chords for like 5 years straight. He had the same beat for like 5 years straight.
I think it
it was still hitting though.
It was hitting.
It's hitting.
It was
but
hitting.
people are like, okay, trap music. It's like people are stuck on. I'm not dissing trap music at all, but I'm saying that it issued in a style of genre, and people have fixated on that, and they are like, I don't know, they made the sound to be like where everybody wants. It's just that sound. It's like I don't see any progression for it from it. From a music
Is that their fault?
It's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's not their fault.
It's not who's fault.
It's not. You can't. It's not. You can't say that you can blame Atlanta for what happened as that. It's not totally their fault. It's their fault to the point to where they have some blame because it's been introduced from them. They brought it here, but it's not their fault for the fact that it's not progressing. Like, it's like everything is all like it's trap centered, and that's fine, but everything is is fixated to where it's that there's no diversity, if you understand what I'm saying. Not
Go ahead, y'all, because y'all know I get passionate about this stuff. Y'all go ahead, man.
All right, let me. Cause I've been trying to, let y'all cook for a minute, because as a person who was born and bred here in Georgia, moved to Atlanta when I turned 17. One thing, I don't know if you said this about like you could, or maybe Trent, you may say this, where you said you couldn't listen to music outside of the club scene, right?
Wait, Little John, yeah,
Lil Jon,
the crunk music, yeah,
the crunk music, because the crunk music, Lil Jon is the face of it, but then there was a lot of other,
it was
a lot of other people in that. Because like for us down here, we were like, because like as a Southern, when we see New Yorkers, y'all got the either the special old school, they got the box on their shoulder, or they got the headphones in, that type of thing, right? Down here, we ride in the car all the time. That's how we process our music. Like, it was not like when I was growing up, most of the music was in the car.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Nah. Music, hip New York as well. Like, now we either in the car or in the club. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you it got a bump either in the car or the club. I think that's most studio. Probably like most studio, like people how they test their music out.
Right. But but we have a fascination down here with, like, if it ain't got that hit into it, we don't. You can't get us in the door. Like, we're just like, nah, fuck that. So that was a thing for us, and I thought it was
mostly strip club though.
Part of it. Like, but that's how a lot of records got broke in the South, through the strip club. But
I just watched B Valley too.
But I think like just we said in a good place. I think not just the South, but I think we have to kind of take the South is just gonna be like a microcosm of what's happening to hip hop in totality. Like we're all like, as far as like hip hop enthusiasts, are trying to kind of having these conversations about, okay, we got a subset of hip hop that's literally has taken over the algorithm, and then we try to get other components of hip hop to at least have a face to it, have it in mainstream volume, but it can't get there for some reason. And that's been before Atlanta took off. That train was already on the track with, like, when gangster rap showed up. When gangster rap showed up, it was over. There was no not putting the toothpaste back in the tube. We were never going to have these kind of like multivariate conversations of subject matters be mainstream again. It was going to be kind of very.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I agree with that, man. You
What
mean
you
like you are you saying that you're already saying that when gangster rap came, there was like I guess all of like the different types of rap was gone?
I would say gone. I wasn't gonna say gone, but the volume was like, the ratio was gonna be different. Like you have like, okay, if you for example, you can take any like kind of like maybe kind of the street record at that time, late 80s, early 90s. You can find the inverse of that, like a Arrested Development or something like that, right? Once we got to like,
yeah, it is
facts. So once we got to like the mid 90s, once that gangster rap really kind of set in, that ratio became imbalanced, and we never got it back.
I think they were just pushing it more, because the thing about it is that you still had De La Soul was still in there somewhere. Tribe Called Quest was still in there somewhere.
But
who else is
when you
in
think
there?
about it, think about it, like you said, De La Soul, you said
They all was still in there, yeah.
They was on the back nine at that point. They was
But
not
they-
in. They were still producing music. But I was just saying, they was not like they was starting to, I don't say get phased out, but we already knew what time it was. Like, okay, we know who they were, but we see what's coming on the horizon. Like, we know that we're gonna get this kind of cut a
So
joint.
what time frame we talking about? We're talking about 90 what? 90 what?
NWA, or is that what we're saying? When NWA
Like 91
comes in?
Yeah, I mean, gangster rap, yeah, probably like early 90s, 91, 92. And then, I'm saying like that ratio was still decent, but you can start to see the transitioning, kick in. So by the time you get to late 90s, it's pretty much over. Like it was.
I think it was more like I just think that it was just pushed a lot more. But you still had Mos Def, you still had Talib, you still had the whole Lyricist Lounge, you still had the whole Lyricist Lounge movement, and you still had De La Soul is still in there. Cause De La Soul still putting out albums in 2000. Tribe Called Quest.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's not my. They ain't the argument I'm making. I'm not saying that people they didn't just stop making music, or they was not, quote unquote, had visibility. I'm just saying that
ones, the top,
the top of the top.
Yeah, like
it was the same format. So, and now, like when crunk music showed up, we just add some bass to it. We just kept it going, and then it just kind of like just a reiteration of itself. But it's the same thing now. Like the thing we struggling with right now is like that same 808 beat. Okay, cool.
the same 808
the same
pattern.
I had no problem with the 808s. It's the same. It's the same melody.
It's the same melody and the subject matter. and the flows, like it's just like they're all it's what's just generic. It's like everybody's doing it.
But that's the thing is, right, because is now being expedited and amplified because of the digital space that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
The algorithm makes everything homogeneous. That's the goal of the algorithm. It doesn't support quote unquote diversity. That is not how the algorithm is built.
That's the thing though. That's all man-made though.
Yeah.
Algorithms and all that stuff. All that stuff is man-made. See, the thing about it, that's how I said, yeah, gangster rap was pushed. That was pushed forward because it was making a lot more money, and it was pushing the agenda of putting black men in jail.
That's very true.
That's why. So I would say that just going back to like the South.
Mm-hmm.
There was, I would say this while adding my 2 cents to it, is that the South, I loved it because it put the South in a good place where it could be heard.
Yeah, worldwide.
Right, worldwide. And also, it humbled New York. It humbled the West Coast. It humbled a lot of places because the South was something you couldn't duplicate unless you were from the South. You really couldn't duplicate it. Like, you really couldn't, because at that time, it's like when the West Coast came in.
Yeah, you needed the West Coast elements to be able to produce that.
Right. Now, like we were talking about earlier, like EPMD, they had West Coast elements, but you couldn't get the accent like Snoop had. You couldn't get the blood, the Crip talk, the everyday things that goes on in the West Coast. So unless you were from the West Coast, you couldn't duplicate that. Even the style, because the style and everything started to come into play. Then when the South comes in, you can't duplicate a T.I. The way T.I. sound,
you can't duplicate
draw,
that at all.
Yep. The crunk, you couldn't duplicate that.
Mm-hmm.
So it humbled a lot. It humbled you in the sense where you got to really change it up. Like, like Jadakiss said, why you mad at the South for? Switch your style up. Try to go into Southpaw. I mean, like, you gotta, you know what I'm saying? You gotta adapt. Everybody had to adapt to what the South was doing. So, and they had a 20-year run, a lot, and they still having this run. But the problem that I had is that a lot of his music didn't, not all of it, but majority of it didn't add any substance to it.
I agree with you on that. It didn't.
It was a lot of candy. I enjoyed the party experience in Atlanta.
Yeah,
I really did. I mean, it was like going to college for a long time. Like, we was, you know what I'm saying? It was a beautiful experience. But then I look back at it, and I'm like, man, it's only a few people that really added something to my growth. T.I., Jeezy, I even though, and it may sound strange, but I don't mean this when I say growth. I mean, like, just added something to the game, I should say. 2 Chainz.
Yep.
It's just it's only a certain people that came in with that thing that with style, with lyrical content, the ability to switch their style up and do different things. Ludacris.
Yeah.
Out of that group, there's only a few that became legendary.
Mm-hmm.
That became legendary. It was a lot of them that came through and added a lot of songs.
Yeah.
But legends, Rick Ross.
Oh, you talking about the South? Okay, I was still thinking Atlanta. I'm like, yeah. I think we had like maybe a probably a top 40, and that was it. And everybody else just
It ain't too many. It ain't too many that came through in Atlanta and you know and really like left their mark. That's why I asked the question like, are y'all happy with the result of it all? You know
I
what
say,
mean?
like I said, yes and no, and I share with that.